Yay! Good morning, everybody. Happy to see you, D. Priaris, citizen. Let me get this going here.
Hey Cosmic, hey D, hey Polaris. Hey everyone, good to see you.
Hey, Spicy. So, I'm really excited about this conversation today, not only because I've lived through this experience myself, but I know that this affects all of us in some way or another. And I'm really grateful that Dee can be here with us to share her experience with helping people heal and find deliverance. And I feel like it's really important to say that it's, although the movies kind of show things like, oh, this person has demons, they're like flying in the air and throwing knives and doing these creepy things, like that actually is one aspect of demon possession and haunted houses, and like that is a thing. That is one spectrum of a big thing, shall we say. So then there's other things where, like, the way, like, entities and spirits, like, this is a big topic, trying to like figure out how to cover these different angles, but I know it will happen beautifully. But um I wanted to say that it's not just something that happens when you get involved in like black magic, strange voodoo, or if you've been involved in like some occult or cultic rituals. This That is a thing, but um, there's really good-hearted people who grow up in decent-looking homes who feel haunted or tormented by spirits. And from my experience and from a lot of the people I've talked to, it can be a result of many things. One thing I've noticed is people can have entity attachments as a result of being abused. They can deal with seeing into the spirit realm, or experiencing it, or feeling tormented by it because they live in a haunted house, because it runs in the family. It can happen because there's an object in the house, maybe an antique or an heirloom that has something attached to it. It can happen because their parents have dabbled in something in the past and the spiritual door isn't closed, so to speak. And also, like, a lot of empaths sometimes find themselves in relationships with um, energy vampire type situations where, the empath is like giving at the cost of themselves, and then they get in a relationship with someone who's willing to take at the cost of others. And that those spiritual energetic dynamics can create attachments that, um, it's almost like you can absorb this dark energy from agreements and contracts and behaviors that are allowed. And then myself as a healer, I've had to release entities off of myself, but I feel like it's more that they were absorbed, or that I absorbed them in my energy field, rather than that I was creating agreements or becoming possessed. There seems to be a distinction there, and I just want us to try to cover some of this mysterious um topic, and like how we can, what are some practical uh body, soul, spirit level things that we can do to find freedom and healing and peace and deliverance. And what do we do if we're, what does someone do if they do feel like they're possessed? So I I'm hoping that we can get into some of this today with D and Citizen. So welcome everybody in the room, and I'm happy that you're here.
Well, thanks for that good intro to the space, Cosmic. D, we can get you up as a speaker. I know you have a lot to say on this topic. And assuming D can come up and chat, we'll probably get into her story for a bit. Anyone else who wants to come up and contribute or ask questions, put in a speaker request and we'll get you up here. Yeah, as you're talking, I like movies a lot. I always reference them. Doctor Strange, there's this good quote, and the head sorcerer lady, she says, "You never defeat your demons, you simply learn to live above them." And I like that a lot. And it goes with what Cosmic is saying. A lot of this stuff is it's an energetic attachment or it's a contractual thing. Um, and it's not like you're going to slay a bunch of demons. You're just going to learn to live above them. And that's the way I see it. And talking to Cosmic for a while now, she has a lot of actual experience doing this stuff and treating and healing people and releases. And so it's very valuable information. Keep an open mind listening to it perhaps and try to take stuff away. And again, if you do have questions, just put in a speaker request. We'll get you up here to chat with us soon. Also, Dee, happy birthday. Good to
Thank
see you up here.
you. Thank you so
How are you?
much.
Did you have a good birthday?
Yeah, I actually did some relaxing and I got a spa day today at 5. So after this, I'm going to go get cleansed and healed.
That's beautiful. It's so important that we take care of ourselves and body, soul, and spirit. I'm really proud of you, and I'm so happy that you could be on the show. I love who you are. I love what you're about, and I'm super excited to learn from you.
Thank you, Cosmic. I knew right from the beginning when you started speaking that we had something in common. But yeah, that I don't know. Did you want me to start sharing, or do you want to continue opening it up in any way, shape, or form? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, I have an idea. Let's visualize that all of us are protected on all realms, dimensions, and timelines, and that this space will be a sacred place that is safe, and that only those who are meant to hear will, and that this will be all useful for the highest good. And with that, I'm visualizing that. And with that, I would love to hear your story. And if you want to try to just kind of work in some of the questions I asked you into your story, and we can just be intuitively guided and see where this.
Perfect. Well, I want to say thank you to Cosmic and Citizen for having me here today and sharing this information because it was lingering around for me for a very, very long time. Um, it was quite intrusive, but I really didn't understand what it could be, why my life wasn't really moving along, and it just started really happening when I started to do more of my healing work because I feel like I sense. Well, let me go back a little bit. In respect to my story, there was a quite a bit of a you know an abusive environment that I grew up in. Um, you know, sometimes parents really don't know how to work with their children, and so I was a very highly sensitive, artistic, creative child, and my parents did not have that kind of an education to work with me. So, discipline became something where it became physical, and and then obviously once that starts to happen as a child, I just want to mention this is that the auric fields open up for children when the abuse starts to begin in their early years, and entities start to attach at that time. So that starts uh, a trauma pattern already within the child, and they start to accept these things in. and this is the way I've experienced it. Also, in another sense, I was not able to absorb a lot of information. For instance, in school, my focus was off. So there were a lot of things that were starting to happen on in that aspect. Even though I have the capacity to like hold really complex ideas, holding information, like reading and regurgitating information, is something that is has always been difficult for me. So it was something that I was not able to do. So I want to share that aspect because uh, this starts to affect you in this way. Um, but what ended up happening after that was I started studying, studied in psychotherapy, and as I started my first year, I could feel more of this heaviness, or like something was around, or I could feel this intense something of energy that was creating a block. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. It was almost like something was looking over my shoulder. It was like sitting there or always around, and I could not um, get it to go. And the more I did my work, the more it started to create physical havoc around me, where things started to happen. Things started moving around. And what ended up happening through the process was I also began to, uh, obviously, I was working with clients. And during one of my processes, I ended up um, doing an exorcism on a client while I was working through much of my own trauma and my fears. And they came after me and wanted to kill me. Is what they wanted. That's what the entity said. And I knew the person, so it was almost like this instantaneous. I was in this duality mind frame because I knew the person. I knew they were a good person, but there's this thing that just took over them, took took possession of them, and um, they came after me, and I had to look at this entity in the eyes, and I started to pray over them and called their name back into them. And every time I called their name, it was almost like I was, like when you hit something over the head and they shake their head and they don't know who they are. It was like that feeling like they were coming back into themselves, but still trying to be. They were still being pulled out by the entity. And I continued to pray. I continued to call their name. I called them and continued to call them. Please come back. I kept saying, please come back. And I would call. And then um, there was someone on the outside of the room that I was in, and I called their name because I wanted help, because I didn't know how to. I thought I didn't know how to deal with it, and they had no idea what was going on in that room. It was a vortex. It was like I was in a different dimension. I was not even on this planet anymore. The person did not hear anything that was going on in that room or what I was experiencing. The one thing that shifted from that was I opened the door to that room and I stepped out of the room, and that's when everything broke. So the cord was cut as soon as I stepped out of that realm. It was very powerful. I ended up calling my teacher because the studies I was working with it was an integrative method of holistic healing in psychotherapy. So we did all different kinds of methods. So it was and we also work with this, and we also work with like shamanic work and so on and so forth. And so I called him and I went in to see him and I said, I wasn't ready for this. And he said, oh yeah, you were. He goes, it wouldn't have happened if you weren't ready for this. And I said, this was something I said, I seriously didn't. He goes, well, you did it. You helped that person. it could have been worse than what it was. You were there to help this person. And so ever since then, I knew my gift. I was being guided to help people in this arena. And in regards to, um, entities, they do attach through your trauma, through your pain, through trapped emotions. Um, you know, it attaches through things that we're not dealing with, or they're suppressed, and they will attach to these areas of our life or things that have been there, like Cosmic said, for a very, very long time. Um, yeah, it's something that hangs around, and it'll attach to your family, an item, and then it feels like it just like snowballs. It picks up in energy. It just continues moving through because it'll pick up one thing after another, and it's really, really intrusive. So I'm just trying to keep it short so that maybe we can open this up a little bit more. But uh, being aware of your energy and trusting your gut, it'll steer clear of this too. But I guess we'll go how to heal it or help it afterwards. But yeah, that's how my experience was, and I've I've I don't know. I just feel like I work from a place now where I know where I stand, and I know when the entity is there, and I don't overstep that boundary. It actually showed me boundaries. It showed me how to protect myself, because I know this is something that was also a question. Protecting myself is knowing your boundaries. Really get to know your personal boundaries, because once you overstep your own personal boundaries, you're allowing anything to come in and really take a hold of you. Um, yeah, that's basically how I experienced it, Cosmic.
That's beautiful. I want to know so much. Would you sorry for the I'm got a kitty on my lap and he's really
No,
talking. Um how would you describe you know entity, demon, ghost, spirit? It feels like these are similar but subtly distinctly different. Like I've wondered things like, is it possible that when some people pass away that their spirits, like if their body isn't handled sacredly, or if they died abruptly or something, or if it wasn't the highest good how things went, or their calling wasn't over or something, like I've wondered, are some spirits like stuck in an in-between world, or did they not go into the light, or were they not supposed to go into the light, or this kind of mystery of like, are there wandering spirits, or are there what are demons, are they fallen angels? I'm not saying we can prove this today, but I'm just trying to get this ball going here, where it's like, are there spirits that don't have a body and they never will get one? Did they have one? Were they an angel? Um, are these spirits looking to have a human experience? So they're like, hey, anybody out there? Can I get on for the ride? Can I get into you? Can I get onto you? Like, like what's going on here? What are these energies? Why are they here? Why are they can we send them into the light? Can we say to these demons, entities, angels, spirits, ghosts, whatever, can we say, hey, it's okay. I know you're scared. I know you're trying to feel 3D, but go to the light, please. Like, farewell, have a good life, go incarnate again. Like, is there a way to send them off nicely, or is this a part of our human experience and we need to have it happen? Like, what are your thoughts on this kind of mystery of like, what are these things,
I know, the common thought, like we say spirits and we think of it as a ghost. um, these energetic beings, like they were once alive, they were once humans. So, and they've experienced life as we know it. So um, it's kind of like, I believe that they've been stuck in an energetic field that they didn't clear, and it kind of comes back and it wants to experience it through a human body again, and that's how they attach. Um, and yeah, I've experienced where I have sent them into the light. I'm not sure, we're not on the other side. This is no, not, confirmed, but it's something that I do, and it really helps. They don't come back. I've had people that I've worked with that have done that, and they've had people pass where they've come to them and tugging at them, and they've sent them back into the light. So it does help when you're sharing it in that way and praying for them, and um, you know it's something that there's also something that we are connected to. So it comes to us, and that's why it comes into our realm. So again, it's energetic. It's also something that we're needing to awaken from within ourselves. So I believe that they come to us for a reason. It just doesn't happen out of nowhere. Um, but I also feel like these spirits, they've been trapped in their emotion and in their body, and then they attach to someone who can possibly work it out for them, or clear up that emotional wound. Um, so yeah, that's how I see it.
That's interesting. Another thing that's fascinating that I wanted to get your take on is, why does it seem like some of these spirits are hateful? Like, your story, where it seemed like that spirit was wanting to kill you. Like, I've personally dealt with that too, where there was a spirit that came into my home. It felt like the spirit of death, and it almost did kill me, and we had to call the ambulance. And then I've had another experience where this girl, on a church mission trip, she just did not like me for no reason. Like, I had just met her, and her voice changed to that of a creepy man or something, and it said that it hated me. And then she had an exorcism. Like, all the pastors and stuff came around her and did an exorcism. So this voice was saying that it hated me, and I just have wondered, like, what's going on with these demons or spirits knowing who some of us are? Why is that? And why are they angry?
I think there's an again, with what the person is experiencing, they're going through um, some um, emotional issues, distraught. They seem to be distraught in some area of their life, and they create these ideas in their mind, um, and they become them. They become these ideas also, and this is a perfect example for when you leave yourself open, or when you're angry. There's such an anger or rage within the person, but they're a very passive person, and they never express it. They keep everything inside, and they come around feeling like they're very nice to you, and but underneath that all, like, now I can feel those energies from miles away. I can smell them before they show up. Yeah. So it's something where they're working something out, and because we are who we are, they feel like they can, they can attach to us in some way, shape, or form, or get it out towards us in some way, shape, or form. So I was really fortunate that I don't know what happened that triggered me to begin to do what I did with the person that I was working with, but it calmed them. It calmed them right down after I stepped out of that vortex, so I could actually at least talk to them and get them some help. But it is something psychological that's going on. If their emotions have never been dealt with, their trauma has never been dealt with, and it just starts to turn and fester into something not very nice within them. And then this is what it shows up. It allows these channels of entities to come right through them. And why us? I'm not sure. I think we need to help in this arena because there's not much help here. I also feel like that the medical system, psychiatry, I feel a lot of these people that have been locked up are geniuses. There are many people with a lot of talent, and they're um, they're just they've never been taken care of properly because the medical system does not know what to do. And you go into a psychosis and they put you in a hospital and they over medicate you and then suppress this stuff even more. So you can imagine the chaos and just the cycles of what people go through here, and it's over and over and over again, and it never gets resolved. Where yeah, it takes a lot of time. Obviously you can't work it out through in the medical system, but if when you find someone that can actually work through this, you're obviously going to need someone in the medical system also. I'm not saying that you're not supposed to take medication with this, but it's got to be weaned off and worked on. The person needs to work on themselves. Spiritual bypassing is something that really it turns into demonic exposure. I'm telling you, that's what it is. People sitting above it, you know, doing the God love thing and not really going to the depths of their issues is what really, really gets this going.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I'm sure there's a lot to unpack there. Definitely. I wanted to make a quick comment that when I was in nursing school and we were in the psych ward rotation, um, there was the client or the people that I would be assigned to. When my nursing instructor wasn't around, I would speak to them as though I was speaking, as though I knew that they were the genius like you're talking about, and that they just were misunderstood and they were misdiagnosed and mislabeled. And whatever I was doing must have been working because the doctors that were in charge of those patients ended up asking nursing my instructor. They said, who is the student who has this and this client? Because apparently the people I was talking to were coming out of their whatever they were stuck in. They were finally finding freedom, and it was so remarkable that the doctors wanted to know what I was doing or saying to them. And when my instructor asked me that, I just said, well, I'm speaking to them, in this way. And I was basically speaking to their spirit, and I was not labeling them that way. And there was something about it that was life changing. So I think that's interesting you bring up the medical field there. um, Citizen, did you have some thoughts about this?
Well, geez, I got a handful of questions, but before we go on to any of that, can you define spiritual bypassing? Um, can you just tell us a little bit more about that, D?
Yeah, it's when there's some deep unresolved um, issues sitting in the background, or underneath your life story. And what I mean by that is that you're set above that and you're an overachiever. You continue keeping busy. There's always a lot of things that you're doing, never being able to be still. Just there's a lot of that stuff going on because obviously emotionally there's things that are inside that are wanting to be resolved, and that doesn't happen. Um, and so what happens is it's almost like you're working from, not you yourself, but people are working from this place from a false pretense. Um, they think they're feeling authentic, but in reality, they don't even know they're doing it. They don't know that there's all of this underneath, because life takes over. Their life becomes busy, so it's almost like this. Everything is covered up by something else, and so instead of going to look at what is really happening, because something may happen in their life, what they do is they just cover it up, like something just happened. It's nothing really. They don't look at it like they need to look at themselves.
Would you say that the love and light is a type of busyness
Yes,
mindset where it's like they don't want to feel the
feel.
authentic
That's the
feelings?
part. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that they can't tap into those feelings within themselves, and so they sit above them. That's exactly what it is, Cosmic. Thank you. Um, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay. Thanks for defining that. And so, yeah, I got a couple questions, but let me start here. Maybe you've said prayer a couple times, and when I hear that word, like so many other words, right? Like it's kind of loosely defined. I think being in a church, like on my knees, hands clasped, praying to God. And I'm assuming you probably mean that in a different way or a specific way. Can you define prayer for us and what you do?
Well, it's really interesting also because I've studied in Hinduism and Buddhism, and I was brought up as a Catholic. And in that situation, I first, yeah, so a couple of months before that, I was initiated in the Mahakala, the wrathful deity that protects you from all of this. And I had just been initiated in that, yeah. And I thought that would have been the first one that would have came to my mind, and I would have started to begin to do the mantras, but that wasn't the first thing that came to my mind. It was obviously me growing up in the Catholic environment, and the first thing I started was the Our Father came to my mind, and I just started saying the Our Father over and over again, and calling this person back. So it was almost like an instantaneous, you know, going back, going back into my childhood, and I haven't been I haven't practiced it in a very, very long time. Like it's not like I'm you know, I never hardly ever go to church anymore or anything like that. But it was just something that came up, and I was in a very critical space because, like you said, Cosmic, this person's whole physiology changed. Their vocal cords changed. Their sound changed. So I was in shock, and I had to do something about it. So I had to think fast. I had to, like, all these resources had to come to my head very quickly, and I think that was the fastest way for me to get to that. So it just came up. Um, and God bless you was another one. And that's something that happened in my dream where an entity was behind me. I turned around and I said, God bless you, and the entity just vanished, like they were no longer. So yeah, it all depends on what you relate to, what you connect to. um there is no one way, and I think honestly, with the way things happened for me, because they were so spontaneous and instantaneous, it was, I didn't have a time to think. I couldn't put anything in place. I was not in my thinking cap mode. It was very, very fast. So it was very authentic and spontaneous, and that's exactly how it showed up.
I love how you said authentic and spontaneous. I would add to that intuitive. I love how in your dream you could say bless you and that the spirit would leave, because a lot of people deal with these demons in their sleep. And I think that, like you said, there's not a formula. It's more of like a genuine loving kindness that seems to be the antidote that works. And that's why prayer, it's not like, hey, this prayer formula is the thing. It's the essence of the prayer, or even, it's not exactly, it's just like, um it's the essence of what you're doing that's the solution, not so much the actual prayer. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it was really me wanting to help, you know. Really wanted to help this person, even though they were attacking me. I still wanted to help them. So it because I couldn't, it was like, wow, I just can't believe what I'm looking at. I was in awe, more than awe. I was flabbergasted. I thought it was only in the movies, like you said, cosmic. I never thought it was ever. It was just wow.
Yeah, and I'm
So,
glad we're talking about that. It is like that. I mean, because it's a full spectrum, just like there's a spectrum of a lot of things. There's spectrum of empathy, there's spectrum of darkness, there's a spectrum of this spirit realm manifestation, and it can be so subtle. It can be like secondhand smoke, or it can be like a building burning down, as far as the way these entities manifest or lash out. um yeah, do you have any thoughts on um why would these spirits appear hostile to those of us who are trying to help people? Are they angry that we might release them off the person and then they can't have this 3D thing they were going for? Or like, why the hostility, do you think?
yeah, well, as soon as I started to do my own work, and uh, obviously they've had a hold on me, the hostility does come out, even in the person. Like even in myself, I felt my hostility, my anger, my rage, but I could actually get it out somewhere because I was working on myself. And at that point, at that point in my life, I was ready to do the work. I was not backing down. I was full steam ahead, which I would suggest to people who are going to do their any of their shadow work, and this is how I work with my clients. I take it very gently. A lot of people, they come in and they're like, okay, so when can I get this done? Or how long is this going to take me? And I don't, you know, encourage anyone to go into this full steam ahead. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just wanted to get it done. So I encountered all of this stuff during my process, and because I'm just that kind of person. Sometimes I want to just do it. Let's go. Let's get in there. I'm a very in-depth person, and I want to get to the meat and potatoes of things. So, um, yeah, I would suggest that you take it lightly, and work on your anger, work on all the sorrow and the things that have occurred within you. And it is because you know they will attach, because or they'll come back because you're now starting to detach them from you. It's almost like a leech, where you have to pick at it slowly so it can come right off. And if you do things very quickly sometimes, or tear the band-aid off, it's going to hurt really badly. So you want to do it gently. um yeah.
Here's another interesting analogy I've used with energy clearing and shadow work,
Yeah.
is like, imagine if you have a balloon and you rub it on your shirt or your hair, and then it sticks to you, but it wasn't sticking to you before, but now it is. And so then if you smooth down your shirt or your hair, then the balloon falls off again. And so with our emotions, and I think there's like a healthy high vibrational way to feel all emotions, even the ones like anger and sorrow and such. But like, let's say that you're experiencing anger in a low vibrational state or way, then in that low vibrational place, you may be like creating a static cling or a magnetism, so to speak, to where now stuff can stick to you because you've chosen to go acidic, or you've chosen to allow your energy to go down here, which is where these entities are maybe more magnetic or something. And so then when you process this and you keep working through healing yourself and acknowledging these things, then once you've acknowledged and processed it in a healthy way, then it's like the balloon falls off or the magnet falls off because you've demagnetized it. So that's kind of one way to look at like releasing entities off of you through shadow work. However, I've also noticed, to me, there seems to be a difference between like something that like a there's, if it's like on the surface of you versus in you. Like when we're talking about these people where their voice changes, that feels more like a demonic possession. That's one way that people have described this phenomenon. Like there seems to be an oppression, which is like where it's outside of you. It's like hauntingly on the outside of you, right around you, like hugging you, versus possession, where like the person has allowed it to come in, and now it's like expressing through them. That feels more like a possession. Have you noticed this difference, and that there seem to be levels of acceptance? Like it's one thing if you like roll around in a bath of Coca-Cola versus drinking it. Like that's different. A different way of experiencing it. What do you think?
Yeah. Sorry, Citizen, did you want to speak? Oh no. Okay. I've experienced, this is through my own process, and what I've seen is that when it's in you, and once you start to process it and clear it, it steps outside of you. Then you start to see it in the physical realm. And then once you see it in the physical realm, then because now that it's outside of you, it's no longer, something that's inside that's creating this havoc within your environment. You start to experience it on a different level. That also needs to be cleared also. So yeah, that's how I've seen it manifest itself. um yeah, I'm not sure if that's something that's what you're talking about also, Cosmic.
Can I? This is so I kind of want to like set the stage for these questions that are very much in line with what Cosmic is saying, which is kind of funny. You could maybe boil everything down to consent, and the way I imagine the word demonic, or to say this is a demon or something is demonic, is when it directly violates someone's free will. And maybe we could, debate whether that's accurate or not. But it's like so much of what we see around us is done through consent, because you don't get in trouble if you can get someone's consent. Let's say we're going to put out this, quote unquote medicine that everyone's going to take, and it's really going to cause these consequences, which are not so good. But we had everyone's consent, so we can stand in like a higher jurisdiction in a spiritual realm and say, everything's cool, guys. Like this shit wasn't demonic, even though we all know it is. But then there's actual, like Cosmic saying, like it's like a possession. It's like a taking over, a direct violation of someone's free will, which is where I think a lot of this exorcism stuff comes in. And to your point, it's like this shadow work. It's this co-creative process in my mind, and it's very difficult to look in these things because you realize these traumatic doorways where you let something in, you're doing it with consent. And you might think, oh, I'll just, release this, be better. But you come back to it. A lot of people do because, and, so I guess both Cosmic and DM, I'm hoping you can talk to this point. Is there a benefit to letting in something like this? Is there a reward that you get? Are you given something? A lot of people feel that righteous anger, or, they're drinking at a bar and they get pissed and they fight, like it feels good to do these things. Is there, maybe talk a little bit more about the shadow work side of things if you can.
I think for me, in doing my own shadow work and being a young child that went through the trauma, and I was very passive for so many years, and then all of a sudden, once I started to do the psychotherapy integration course, what ended up happening was that this stuff started to surface. The stuff that I've kept passive, and I was nice and I was helpful and I was all of these things that I was doing on the surface to kind of just keep that stuff still alive, started to come to the surface. And I'm really glad that I had a process where I could have let that rageful anger out in a group environment where I did primal therapy. It wasn't pretty. It was awful, and it wasn't. It was contained. Yeah, it needs to come out. This stuff needs to happen. It was contained. I was observed by 10 people in a room. I I didn't say very nice things. It was directed at certain people, and I was just letting everything out. And obviously it doesn't feel good because you're not used to doing those things. But afterwards, it just started to unravel all this other stuff that's been sitting around that I didn't even know about, and it came to the surface. So I feel it's a necessary process for people to get rid of that. I think that's what we're working with, even in our, you know, collective consciousness. Everyone's walking around with all of this stuff, sitting and pretending to be nice, and their life is normal. But in reality, it's manifesting itself in what we're seeing today with all of this deception. And we're still, and it's up in our face, this deception. It's demonic. It's literally demonic, and it's we're allowing this to rule. you know they're leaders of our worlds that are doing it. So until we start to do the depth work within ourselves and release this stuff, it needs to come out. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with being angry and rageful. It needs to happen. And I think that's the biggest part of how demonic entities, and even anything that's been attached, that's where it sits. It sits in the anger and the rage. We need to
I'm glad you
transmute it.
said that, because even in I'm not saying that all the models of, healing therapy or whatever that are out there are like, the answer, but even in the traditional like wheel of healing, to get to acceptance, you go through anger, and it is extremely healthy and high vibrational to allow yourself to feel the rage and anger in a way that's, like you said, this primal therapy. That's for a purpose. That is to feel, to heal, which to me is very different than this other phenomenon of allowing a spirit to come in and attack through you. For example, like, I've done some primal therapy in different ways where I process, here's how I really think and feel about this situation and what happened. But I'm not doing it in a way to harm myself or others, or to mistreat someone. Whereas in this entity demonic type scenario, it seems like the people who have these demons or attachments or energies that take over them, they end up attacking others and harming, and they don't end up taking responsibility and healing at the end. It's not like they go into some like fit of rage and then they're like, oh my god, thanks for tolerating that, I finally feel better, wow, I can't believe it, what a great therapy. It's not like that. It's like they go into some fucking demon rage and destroy, and they're not even sorry. They act like it didn't even happen when it's over. It's like it's totally different than primal therapy. So um it kind of seems like those who are avoiding the primal therapy are the ones who get approached for, hey, you want to try out your rage in this fashion? I mean, it just seems a whole other level, a whole other dimension, like you said. And it's fucking scary. I mean, the covert style of it is really scary too, because people can be destructive in the most friendly appearing of ways. And you can feel it from miles away, like you said. You can feel the difference. So I'm glad you brought up this primal therapy.
Yeah, I did a lot of it, you know, because it really gave us the space to work out a lot of our feelings, a lot of our emotions. I do it with my clients. Um, you know, unfortunately, you know, we had to go through, you know, the COVID thing, so not being able to see people on a physical level. Again, this is another aspect to, you know, keeping people away from each other, and having to deal with some of this stuff. So I was going to just say something else to you, Cosmic, in regards to what you were sharing. It's unconscious to a lot of them, right? So they don't even know that they're doing it. They don't even, it's so, they're so unaware, and so like it's not even something in their peripheral vision. They can't see anything. They are just in rage mode, and whoever shows up is the person they're going to deal with. And sometimes, and this is another thing, when you're, say you're even around it as an out, like person's on the other end of it, you need to be firm with it. You need to be firm with this aspect of an entity also at times, you know. You know, do you remember Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings? Thou shalt not pass. Put that sword down, and that's it. No, you can't. You can't come here. You're not allowed to step into this. I do not accept. Like Citizen says. I also, Citizen, in regards to um, agreement and what's the word you use again, Citizen? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought here. In agreement to, or I can't remember the word. Anyway,
Consent.
consent, that's the word. Thank you. When you're in consent, and again, I didn't know I was in consent to certain things also. So I think what happens during trauma is that you will consent because you've been placed in that situation to consent, and you don't even know you've consented, and then you're carrying all of this around without your knowledge because it becomes a part of you. So there's a consent that has been there for a long time. Maybe from my past life. It's really interesting. My therapist asked me one day is why I chose to do this or be here in my family at this time and take this on. And I said I'm here to protect them. So it's something that maybe I chose in my past life to do. I'm not sure, but it's something that I can relate to now as I've done my work.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. Yeah, that's a extremely interesting concept to bring up, is that this idea of you don't even know what you're consenting to. And so if you get into this topic in this world, you know, it's like, what are you consenting to by voting or having a driver's license or, you know, these various contrivances? There's all this stuff behind it that you're actually consenting to that you don't realize. It's all about they'll make an offer, and if you don't conditionally accept the offer, or you say no, or you don't say no in the right way, you accepted that. And what you're talking about, D, is a very interesting topic. We bring these consents or these contracts in with us from past lives or from our ancestors. And maybe you can touch on that. Like, what do we do about this? How do we figure out what we've consented to? How do we nullify these contracts and move on in a sovereign way?
I think, like we've been saying over and over again, it's really important to get to be lifting the veil, lift the veil, and look behind, and allow yourself to go, you know, deeper, so that you can see the truth, your truth, and begin to unravel it. It's, you know, it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it. And you do feel sovereign from this place because You don't feel attached to anything. You don't feel like you can be coerced into anything because you see it before it shows up. Everything that's been happening, even on a physical level outside in our world, I've I've known about it for 20 years. The coercion has been like, and then plus doing my own work that happened in the past 15 years, it's been amazing because everything that occurred was almost a confirmation for me in where I was moving or how I was moving through my life and clearing all of those things that I cleared and worked on. So it's really important to work on the self and being authentic with yourself, being honest, um, and don't let that fear hold you there. That's probably one of the biggest things that hold us into this hold and consent is the fear. This fear is allowing you to stay where you are, and you're just feeding into this. What would you rather feed into? That's the other thing. Or would you rather feed into this entity, or would you rather feed into your life flourishing, beauty? Like, what do you want to feed into? What do you want to consent to? Go ahead, Cosmic.
Wow, that's pretty deep right there. It's perfect for where I was getting ready to go, which is it's really interesting. I want to know how you're helping people who may or may not consciously be aware that they have, this demonic situation going on. I want to know, like, do you do shadow work with them, or you encouraging them to feel things, to heal them, and then all of a sudden maybe these demons come forward and they're like, oh my god, you've exposed me, here I am, let's do this now. And is it like that, or what? Because I try to figure out how to word this. I guess I'll word it this way. I was in a relationship where there was constant heal this layer, heal that layer, what's here, what's there, feel, constant healing, you know, uncovering every stone type of thing going on. But yet I was somehow like consenting and feeding this person's entity. It's like I was providing something that was keeping it alive. And when I did the Gandalf thing where I was like, no more, then it was like this entity was like, oh shit, no more free meals. Well, I guess I can't stay here anymore. And then the demon surfaced to be released in this person. And so, you know, are we participating or consenting at some level when we are in these relationships where we're feeding a thing that's eating what we're providing? I don't know, like this whole feeding consent thing, the payoff, like it's kind of strange, but it's a thing. Like when you say
Yeah.
no more, it surfaces.
Yeah, and it also detaches at the same time. So again, Cosmic, I think you have to go through the process, right? It's kind of like you went through that and you saw exactly what happened, but in working with people, also it takes I need to be gentle with them. So it's not like I can just because I can narrow it down in one session, but they can't handle what's showing up in one session. So it has to be um, like the past client I just had. She was like, okay, I want to get this done, just like me. And then I know she's very sensitive, very creative, but she wanted to get it done. She's in her early 60s. This has been going on for so long, and she's done a lot of therapy, and she couldn't really understand why this was still hanging around. And we ended up working on something and working on this issue that she's been having. And slowly. And then one day I said to her, it feels very desperate. There's a desperate feeling around this. As soon as I said that, we've ended our session. She sent me a message saying that she was very angry with me. And she was very disappointed with what I said. And then I got on the phone with her. I scheduled a call so that we can talk about it. And I let her sit with it for about a day. And then once I spoke to her, she realized what it was. And she wasn't really angry with me. She was angry with herself. So, like I said, if these things come up all at once, it will come at you. But because it was dealt with in such a small bits and pieces, small bite sizes, she actually could process it and take responsibility for it and take it back. So yeah, it was really, really a powerful moment in that. I've had quite a few of those, and I'm not afraid that my clients get upset with me or they're going to get angry with me, but I'm going to be truthful and honest in my sessions and really share what's showing up. But that brought up that entity. That
So
was that
that's
entity.
interesting. You kind of
Mm-hmm.
go in this like gentle conversation with the person,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how to describe what I do compared to what you do, but I feel like when people call me for help with stuff that you could classify as entity related, I just go straight in and I'm like, hey, looks like it's this, that, and the other. Like, let's do this. Let's declare this. Like, get this shit out of your life. Let's go. I don't know. I don't feel like I get real conversational get conversational about it like you do. So maybe there's multiple ways to do the same thing. What do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. My process is an integrative process. So there's people that come in. It depends on how honest don't forget, you can see that that entity is sitting in the background and that spiritual bypassing is coming to you. That's who's coming to you, the person who's been avoiding it. So she's coming to me, and even in our conversations, she's avoiding that aspect of what I see. I see right through her eyes. So I see that entity that's sitting there. I know it's there. The person sitting in front of me doesn't know it's there. So I'm speaking to it as she's sitting in front of me. And I'm being gentle with it so that I can bring it forward in a gentle way. Um, because I can also feel the intensity of it. Okay. So you want to be very gentle with it when it's a very high intense entity that's sitting in the background, because you kind of want to bring it forward gently and kindly, and then and then all of a sudden they're coming around, and I said, well, the thing that I said to her was almost like this, like I grabbed it and pulled it forward, but with my hand. You know what I mean? And then she had nowhere to go, or the entity had nowhere to go. I caught it.
That is so interesting. I love how you speak to that entity and then you realize that that's distinctly different from the human you're
That I'm
looking at.
speaking to. Yes.
Wow, that's a whole different angle. I um wow, I'm going to have to sit with that. Let's invite some people forward. There's a lot of people in the room here
Yay.
that were really excited to talk about this and put some thoughts out. So can people come forward and request the mic, please? I know there's let's see here. Star Alchemist, Sarah, Priaris, Scoobs. Hi everybody, but I know some of you specifically were excited. Star Alchemist, did you have something to share or ask? Can you hear
Hey,
us?
Star, how's it going? You might be muted, but go ahead and you have a question or comment, or how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing great. Um, this topic actually started my whole spiritual journey because I was attacked by, I would say, these people turned this this soul that I knew into an entity that attacked me, and it was like my phone would always drop and break during these attacks, and I would actually see this entity like in my face and touching me and stuff like that, and my energy would actually drain. And I didn't know anything about these attacks. I didn't know anything about protection. I learned through my own will. It was like one day the entity came up and I forcefully moved away. Like I used my my soul just moved away, and after that, that's when the entity stopped um like attacking me. And then a few years later, the ironic thing was I had a past life regression and was it Akashic record reading, and it specifically said I hold the DNA to remove these entities. Like I could go to the higher realms and the lower realms, and I'm able to balance both. And now I had services to remove these entities, so I know both of them, and I know how I remove it is through energy work. Through energy work, that's how I remove them. But it was fascinating how I was hearing how you removed it by speaking to them. I didn't um I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's my experience with like demons and entities.
Thank you for sharing. So, how else would you say these could be removed besides talking to them, or maybe the topic of protection?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Okay.
Star.
You can actually light candles up and do like rituals to remove them because it's like kind of a cord. You could do that way, depending on what kind of entity it is. Because a lot of them, they like to hide, they like to mask, they like to come in as something else, but they really cloaking themselves. So you really gotta do like divination and really seeing how you can remove it. I know you could use Florida water and like spiritual cleansing, the bath, like those help me.
Yeah, I've thank you, Star. I do very similar things also. I not only do I speak to them, but I'm an Reiki master and teacher, so I do energy work with it too. But I also work with essential oils as they also help on a cellular level and on an energetic level and on a spiritual level. They're very, very powerful tool to clear energy and to clear an auric field. So they help with energetic clearing and auric field clearing as they're one of our first medicines. So it's very, very powerful. Setting boundaries is another way to help the client and yourself to clear those things too. Making sure that the client's boundaries are, they understand when their feeling is not matching the current circumstances, when they become confused about a topic, or there's like they begin to spin, when you're feeling a sudden shift in emotion or sensation, when you lose certainty about truth that you firmly believe in, like it's just gone array, and just stop. Stop yourself, disengage with whatever is going on. Okay, take a deep breath to help you focus. um, Say your name out loud, because that's how I've worked with some of my clients. Say your name and say that you are here. I am here. You might want to ask yourself what the problem is or what the emotion is what you're feeling, or who is it. And then just relax and let yourself reconnect again. And write things out. That also helps. Music, sound. I do all different things. Art. People sometimes can't explain what they're feeling. They know they feel something. They can't explain it. Maybe even yourself, you can't explain something. Get a pad out. Get some pastels. Start drawing. See what happens on the piece of paper. Because you'd be surprised. It's a very powerful tool to work with. Yeah, those are the ones I can think of right now. But I seem to work in a very, I'm very, connected to my clients, and whatever shows up, I just pick that item. I also use divination tools, which is cards and so on and so forth. So I hope I answered the question.
I think you did, Dee. And so what you said might apply to my question here. I just want to ask everyone up here this question. So Star, D, Cosmic, I hope you can all answer. There's an expression: if you lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas. And if you're a quote demon slayer, you're going to hang out with demons. Like if you're doing this type of stuff, you're around it, you're exposed to it. And so how does one how do you do it safely? What do you do? I mean, maybe all the things you just said, do you apply to what you do to energetically reset or be protected yourself? But maybe you can add on that. And Star and Cosmic, I'm curious to hear as well. What do you do if you're helping someone to not take it on and to reset and protect yourself?
Well, I love that you brought up essential oils, and I thought of this funny little saying where people say, like, it's like water off a duck's back. And the reason why water rolls off a duck's back is because it has oils on it. And I also love the reason you brought up oils is because these plants, these flowers are spiritual. I mean, nature is extremely sacred and ancient original medicine of all the realms, I believe. And so to call in the assistance of the flowers and the oils and the trees and the wind and everything is beautiful and wonderful and essential. And so I love all of that. I personally do a lot of visualizations with prayer declarations, basically sovereignty statements. You know, like we did at the beginning of the space, kind of a declaration. I declare that I will be safe and protected during this interaction with this person. And then if I get off a call with a client and I feel like my energy is really drained somehow, then I might explore, is there a place where there's a vulnerability here, or did I open part of my field up to this for a reason? That maybe was the reason something I need to learn from, is the reason because I agreed to something and maybe it wasn't in my highest good too. So then I explore, why am I feeling heavy or whatever I'm feeling at the end. And then if it seems like that wasn't for the highest good for me to feel that way at the end, then I just do what I call spiritual hygiene. You basically a spiritual shower of sorts where you just kind of get recentered and you just say, like, I cleanse and clear all of my energy fields, past, present, and future, on all realms, dimensions, and timelines. I do not consent to any energies or connections that are not in my highest good. I send love to everyone involved, and if there are any dark spirits or energies that are trying to approach me, maybe for help even, then be well, go to the light, find your source. And so that's kind of some of the spiritual cleansing rituals I do. And I think there's many we can do. Do you want to say anything more to that, Dee?
I think you and I are on the same path when it comes to that. I feel like we're I totally get it. I like I said, there's probably others that I and you and I that have not even mentioned, but it's exactly what I do. I use crystals. I use the essential oils because I've worked with them for 20 years, so I understand exactly how they work. And really an understanding. I think there needs to be an understanding of where your boundaries begin and end, and visualizing that line, like really visualizing and understanding where that line is. And as soon as someone begins to step close to that thin line, uh, you know, you know, you know where that is, right? And it just you keep yourself safe that way. I've had to learn that the hard way because my boundaries, I didn't have any boundaries. You know, having the trauma, there were no boundaries there. I was an open. It was open, for everyone, and so I had to learn my boundaries the hard way. But I understand what they are now, and I know when it's getting close. So I just put boundaries down, and just say no when it's time to say no. No is a full sentence, they say.
And I just want to see Star. Do you want to comment on any of that before we get to the mountain elf?
Oh yes, I actually I we got a I cover my open points, which is like for me is my crown. I make sure that's covered, and when I'm doing it over the phone, like on FaceTime, I actually put a barrier, like for salt. Like I put a line of salt, and salt, cinnamon, stuff like that. I put a line of that, and I use my spirit guides who assist me. Like I make sure I speak to them and protect me before anything. And like I open the the dimension for it, the space for it, and then afterwards I close all of it. And actually, when I remove the entity, I make sure I send it to a whole nother place where it's not here anymore, so it won't attach to me or anyone close to me. So I'm protecting the people in my family and who's close to me, because sometimes we're protected, but the people who are around us could, be affected about it too. So that's how I um, protect.
Mountain elf?
Hi. I really appreciate the talk. And I guess my question would be about thoughts and experiences with like extra dimensional or alien attachments.
That's a really good one. You ready for that rabbit hole, D?
Great question.
Let's go for it.
I'm
You
kind of
want to start, Cosmic?
that's a pretty loaded question. It's right up in the mystery of it all because I don't claim to like know a lot, but I have had some experience with the the extra dimensionals, some that seem friendly and some that don't seem so friendly. And um I mean, one idea is that there is a spectrum of every species or being that exists, that there's a sense of free will or a sense of energy fields that are beneficial or non, and we choose or don't choose to allow certain things. It's pretty mysterious. What do you think, D?
I've had an experience also where the it wasn't very positive. Um, but again, I was very naive to a lot of this. So the knowledge that I have today, so I wasn't. I was in a lot of fear, at the time. But yeah, no, I feel it's the same kind of there's uh consent, and I think that's where it still falls into, like Citizen said. If though I also feel like if those even those energies are open, you're giving consent to anything to come into the space, and whether it's an alien or not. It also depends on the quality the of what you're attracting, whether it's positive or negative or whatever it is at the time. So I still feel that it's energetically you are a vibrating source, and you're going to attract whatever it is you're going to attract. So
Well,
that's
I do
how I
want to
feel
say
about that.
something real
Yeah.
quick on that because although I do believe in like attraction and maybe like agreements that we might make pre-incarnation and such, it's just really hard. And Mountain Elf, I want to hear like why you brought that up or what your thoughts are. But with the topic of consent and whatnot, there are some alien experiences and even seeming 3D slash entity experiences that people have had, like where a child is raped or where someone feels that they were abducted by an alien and experimented on. And this shit is dark and does not feel. I think that there's some type of, this is my opinion, that there's a glitch in the matrix, so to speak, where non-consensual stuff can happen, where you might not have consented to be raped as a child pre-existence, and you might not have consented to have an alien come and snatch an egg away or whatever, and if that's the case, this is my thought is, um if there's stuff that happens where we actually are a victim of a non-consent crime, so to speak, I would think that we could transmute it in like a super immunity way. Like if you're exposed to some type of germ or whatnot, and you in your and then you have to respond to it whether you want to or not because you were exposed to it, you'll be guided into a super immunity program of sorts. So you'll be taught, hey, you were caught up in this MK Ultra bullshit, and here's how you get out of it, here's how you heal it, here's the Trojan horse, to teach others how to heal. So I would think that I just wanted to cover that there are some things that I don't know if we consent to, and I wouldn't want to say that we for sure did consent to everything violating that might happen to us. But if we do go through it, and some of us have gone through it, I just want to put out the encouragement that you're not alone, and that you will be guided into the path of healing for whatever that event is. So, Mountain Elf, did you have anything more to say on that?
Oh no, I mean, I asked simply because I kind of feel like it's the thing I have least experience with and makes the least sense. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity to get your guys' thoughts on it.
Well, I'm glad you took us there, so thank you. And Susan, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to say that I had experience with that. I I guess it started in 2000, around 2011 when my mother died, and I was serving in local politics. I was an elected school trustee, and I was being scouted to run for higher office, so provincial and federal. And I would consider myself a high sensitive empath, which is sad that that word is being overused now. But anyways, I found myself targeted by a psychopath, and then that's when all hell broke loose. And I had some negative entity attachment. By the time I got away from the psychopath, I was still serving my last term, and basically had to call in my service. And by the time I extricated myself from that, I felt like my DNA was in a million shards at my feet. And I ended up moving away from the area that I raised my kids. My kids were all adults except for my youngest, and they went to live with their dad, and I'd always been the primary caregiver. And I started searching for answers, and I just wanted to share some of the authors and counselors and psychotherapists that helped me. I didn't actually go see anybody. I worked through it myself with a connection to the divine, which I call God. I do consider myself a Christian. And the one woman was Eve Lorgan, and she's got she's just, you can just Google her, and she talks about the alien love bite and the connection of narcissists and evil, as well as extraterrestrials and empaths, and how we're specifically targeted. But and she's done a lot of work. She did a lot of work. I can't remember the name of the people she worked with, but she's done a lot of work on alien abduction, MK Ultra survivors, and they call it anomalous trauma. So I actually went as far as looking for therapists in my province that specialized in anomalous trauma, and I connected with a fellow. I never did see him, but it was so validating and comforting to know, like, the way he wrote back to me. He said, he'd had the same experiences himself and knew that it was very difficult to talk about. The other person I really like, and he's got a Twitter account, is Tom Montauk. And his girlfriend, Clarissa, that's not her real name, and I can't remember her website, so you'd have to go down a rabbit hole of Tom Montauk's work. And she shows pictures of what kind of marks are left behind after an alien abduction. And James Bartley is another one that I appreciate his work. And then also Bernard Gunther, whose website is Piercing the Veil of Reality. So all those people helped me, like Eve Lorgan. I'm in Canada, she's in the States. I considered going down there to work with her. I didn't, but she kindly emailed me back and gave me lots of suggestions. And my spiritual path started at around the age of 25 when I got sober and went into AA, and then went down the journey of trying to define what God was to me. I was gratefully invited into a lot of Indigenous ceremony, which I find means a lot to me. And I don't know whether that's because of my background, my Scottish, English, Irish, Romanian background. But Eve Lorgan specifically said, I said, who do you pray to when you feel these entities? And she said, Jesus Christ, and she'll go to church. So I ended up having all these kind of situations after I moved. I had all these situations where Christians would be coming and, like, I don't know, just Christians would be coming into my life. And my maternal grandmother was a very strong Brethren Christian. So somehow I got out from under those entity attachments, and it was through a lot of ocean swimming, believe it or not, walks through the forest, and just connections with God, and knowing, number one, that I was perhaps a targeted individual, and the most important weapon they have against targeted individuals is isolation. And I was isolated like a hermit in my recovery from the psychopath for a long, long time. And as soon as I started breaking free of the isolation, the hold that these entities had over me started to wane. And there's one other thing I wanted to tell you. I've got, like, I joke that I had narcissists apply here as a neon sign on my forehead, because I had, as Sandra Brown was another one. She wrote Women Who Love Psychopaths, and I think she saved my life, because she wrote, sometimes women who have had a narcissist, or men, I guess, but it seems to be more women, who had a narcissistic father, will have a cluster of 4 or 5 relationships with narcissists and psychopaths before they either A, commit suicide, B, are addicted to alcohol or prescription drugs, or C, break the cycle. And I broke the cycle. But one of the other narcs in my life was this doctor. He was just a general practitioner, and he called himself a addictions ADHD specialist. And in my perimenopausal years, when I was chairing the school board and single parenting my 4 children, who I gave birth to at home and breastfed them all for 2.5 to 3 years. So I breastfed for 10 years in total. This isn't the topic today, but I didn't vaccinate them. Unfortunately, they did get caught up in the narrative. But anyways, I digress. Where was I going with that? The parenting thing. Yeah, the doctor. So I get diagnosed with extreme to severe ADHD, and this doctor starts me on ADHD meds and starts cranking it up. So I was on Vyvanse, which, if you look at what the pharmaceutical company says, the maximum dose is 70 milligrams a day. And I was down to way under what my fighting weight should be, about 120 pounds, 5'5", and he had me on 120 milligrams a day. So I was like a walking meth addict and still functioning. And when I read all those writers I talked about and others, I found out that, I don't know if this is true, but the reptilians and the demons, their favorite drug to manipulate humans is amphetamines. And I'm not suggesting that people don't use those things therapeutically if they can, because the way my brain works, and it's injured now, of course, it would be great if I could have a small dose, but I stay away from all pharma now. But it's like it's the same thing with alcohol or cocaine. I don't know about marijuana. Bernard Gunther, he won't even do ayahuasca ceremony or anything because he thinks all the plant-based medicines are now being corrupted by this demonic energy. But I will say, if you get yourself so inebriated, and I'm not holier than thou in any way, shape, or form, but if you get yourself where the lights are on and you're not home, you open a portal, you put yourself at risk, and that's where these things can enter, whether they're demonic or ET. So that's all I have to say about that experience. So again, Tom Montauk, Eve Lorgan, fantastic people, and Bernard Gunther, who also wrote back to me, and ironically ended up marrying a healer from my city, Vancouver. And I think they're down in Arizona or New Mexico now. They left LA because it got so crazy down there. But
Wow.
anyways,
I'm
that's
really
it.
glad
That's my
you
story.
shared. Thank you for sharing.
Woo!
You're so right. There are targeted individuals, and empaths are a common light that such moths fly to. I'm glad you brought up these different resources so that the people who listen can look into that. It's sort of a whole kind of subgenre of portal to go into on this topic. Dee, did you have any other thoughts or comments to any of that?
Yeah, the it was great. Thank you so much. The aspect of the meds, and I also was thinking about the labeling and calling it mental health. Like all of those labels are just like, stay away from the labeling. I never label my clients with anything, especially those ones. Yeah. And like you said, yes, sometimes the meds are needed, but they can be weaned off and supported by natural medicines and start to get your body and mind, mind, body, spirit back again. So yeah, the things that you shared in the shamanic teachings, that's really powerful, and getting out into nature is so powerful. Something that I totally forgot to mention. So thank you, Susan, for bringing all that up.
Thank you so much for allowing me to share.
Yeah, I'm proud of all of us for sharing, because it's in the sharing that we find freedom, and that we can come together and pull together our experiences and wisdom and be a tribe and a community. I don't think we need to be upset that we're not all standing around a campfire. We can use social media for good, and we can be intentional about it all, and that's what we're doing. So, are there any other people who want to come forward? Or Dee, is there any other angle of this topic that you feel inspired to talk about?
I think right now I'm really satisfied with the conversation we had and how everyone brought up their points and shared, and And I really want to like say thank you to you for having the courage to bring these types of topics to the forefront, as it's something that, you know, people really don't want to talk about, or they don't have the courage to actually bring it to the forefront. And you and Citizen have been really powerful duo in bringing this stuff forward and asking questions and just the knowledge and sharing. And I really, really want to thank both of you.
Yes, you're welcome and thank you. It seems that it was written in the stars to be this way. So, Citizen, did you want to say something as we kind of close?
I'll try to keep it shorter then if we're gonna be wrapping up. Susan, thanks for coming up. You made some good points. It was interesting what you said about like this demonic energy is getting itself into maybe some of these more healthful plant medicines, quote unquote medicines like ayahuasca or psilocybin and things like that. I do wonder, maybe we can wrap up with this kind of question for everyone up here. Like, where do you see things going? The state of consciousness and like these topics. It's interesting because things might be getting worse in a sense, but they're also waking everyone up and things are getting better. So just kind of curious, like where you see things going. Mountain Elf, you brought up an interesting question about aliens and entity attachments and things like that. I've heard that some of these attachments, like AI driven attachments, are being dissolved and they're going away. But then there's also this other element of, the quote unquote medicine that's being distributed is bringing in different types of attachments. So just kind of curious, like where people see this going and playing out. Maybe we can kind of wrap up with that, and hopefully it's a positive message.
Well, I'll share.
Yeah, please go.
Sorry, I'll share. I used to smoke marijuana, but I don't anymore because I don't feel it's the same, to tell you the honest truth. I do feel that in the plants, some of the plant medicine, but I stopped and started to clear my body and just do more cleansing and so on and so forth, and really get back to basics. Um, I feel on a conscious level, things are possibly going. This is just my feeling. I don't watch the news anymore. I mean, I get certain posts here and on Twitter, but I really don't go out there and look for anything. On more of an emotional and connected feeling that I get is it's going to get worse. I believe this is the time when, people need to awaken by will or by force, period. It's going to happen. And that's also with our psyche. If the longer you hold on to something, eventually it will open itself up. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to do the work. So everyone that's been sitting around comfy up until now, I think everything will be manifesting in that manner. That's just my connection to the work that I've done and everything outside of me and universe and my meditations and just how I connect to the world. And destruction and creation are in the same hand. So, I mean, we're on that path. And I believe that, with everything, whether it's plant medicine or our world, our systems, our everything, everything. I think everything is going to, it's almost like, I feel like, I don't know how to describe this. It's like churning the soil. Like when you're churning the soil and you need to, yeah, that kind of a thing is showing up in my forehead. The soil is being churned and moved around. Now we're cleaning it up. So, and Mother Earth is very powerful. She's also going to let us know. So keep paying attention.
That's beautiful. It's so true. I think it's interesting. Well, we all want to be our highest self and to be made well and to have a a fulfilling, meaningful life and to experience joy and the fullness of our existence. But that involves the turning up of the soil, like you said, because um, there's nothing wrong with every flower of the field and every weed that can be used for medicine. However, if you're trying to grow carrots and tomatoes, you don't really want these other plants up in there taking up the nutrients. So you got to pull those out and move things around. And in the same way, like the soil of our soul, there be these things that surface that are not really the goal or the highest good for what we're going for, and those things need to be uprooted and dealt with. And that might seem like a disturbance or a destruction or a force to be reckoned with. Might And it might be painful or seem like not okay. But if we keep reframing and having this perspective that everything is our teacher and something that we can learn from, even if it felt destructive, then we can get to this place of acceptance and peace in the journey, and to have peace in the journey and not just the destination. We can enjoy the whole path along the way. So thank you again, Dee and Citizen, and everybody who's shared and been a part of this space. It's amazing. I love you all. I'm thankful. And did you have any closing comments, Citizen?
Nothing better than what you just said. Yeah, we'll kind of do these every Thursday covering these types of topics. Happy to see a lot of people show up for, something talking like all this kind of stuff. Good to see you guys. And yeah.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. I'm grateful that we can create safe spaces to share every experience. Nothing is taboo. We're all in this together. So until then, I will see you all next week.
Bye.